go the order of the agenda, Rhonda?
We can do that if you want to do that, but usually we've just been bringing them up and just going over them as you, like if you have 2 or 3, we'll go over those, whatever.
Okay.
If somebody else wants to comment on one that you have brought up, if someone else wants to comment on something you brought up, we can do it that way.
Okay.
Because I would personally like, there's a couple on here I would personally like to,
You don't have any microphones, so we should
if no one else has anything, I would like to, for 9F1, the ratification for math curriculum. I know that's under Blake Freeman, and he is not here. I would just like to discuss the math curriculum a little bit more than we've discussed in years past. I know that the math curriculum has probably already been bought. Am I correct? Has it already been bought? It says ratification of it. Have we
Yeah,
already-
so next year will be an adoption year.
Right.
So we this is a continuation of the curriculum that we've had until we get to or through next year.
through next year.
Through next year, correct. So next year,
We use what we're using now.
Correct.
And then we'll be in math adoption.
that's correct. So they'll set up a textbook committee. They'll review, like the normal
Right.
process, they'll review the resources that are available, make a recommendation to the board for curriculum purchase.
If I may, one of the things with the standards that are changing, there are a few pieces that we would like to add or enhance what we have now. And so what we're recommending to be purchased in the meantime is to help get us through this season while the standards are in revision towards the adoption, the full adoption and process next year.
Okay, is this K through 12? Is this just elementary? It's the whole thing, K through
Yes.
12?
Yes.
So it will be more like adoption of 3 different, like one for elementary, one for middle, and one for high? Is that the way it's normally, that's usually the way we normally do it, correct?
It will be that, correct. So they'll have an elementary group, a middle group,
Yes.
and a high group that'll be a part of that textbook committee that'll go through that process. And it's probable that I won't say it's probable. There's a strong chance that it won't be the same curriculum resource for all 3 levels,
Right.
because the textbook providers normally cater, and some are better at elementary curriculum, some are better at middle or high curriculum, and then obviously the feedback and input from those curriculum teams will help guide that decision making.
What kind of input, when the textbook committee comes out, and it's impossible, I've looked at some textbooks before when they were going to do adoptions. It's just almost impossible for us to go in and know exactly what the standards are and what each. I know it's a tedious process for everyone, especially for us, that we don't really know all the standards and that kind of thing. I personally do not like the elementary curriculum that we have at all. And I think a lot of parents got a good taste of that during COVID when Dr. Johnson, you included, saw some of the things in some of our current curriculum that just was not what we think it should be.
Sure.
And so how much input will the board have on that? At what point do you come to us? Do you ask of our opinions? Do you
So one of the things, as I was just coming into this position, we built out the process for how we adopted our literacy curriculum. And to me, and I'd served on an adoption committee as a teacher many years ago, it was one of the most robust, largest group of teachers, parents, and input. Inviting the board absolutely would be a part of it. The other thing that I found in looking at the current trends in high quality instructional materials is, number one, they've come a long way. And one of the things that we are seeking to enhance is the parent side of support, both in literacy, what's available on our website, what parents know before a unit even starts for students, so you can have an understanding before you go into those harder pieces. But what we have found also is that the newer curriculum choices that we have, to me, better serve our kids because they have greater online presence and they have greater access to resources that are online, not just that paper copy of a textbook. But absolutely, you will have an invite and an invitation to the process, and have the ability to weigh in and look at what we are able to present to our teachers and to that committee.
Just,
Oh, go ahead.
well, just one thing I was going to note, that the standards, so the state standards that are adopted will always drive the curriculum decisions. And so the curriculum providers, their job really is to align to state standards across the country. So a lot of what you see in our curriculum resources for math are based on what the state standards are that are set. So we don't get to pick per se, the standards. The standards are the standards, and then the curriculum that we end up adopting or purchasing or implementing is based on what those state standards indicate.
So all schools, charter schools, private schools, public schools, we all have the same state standards, correct?
Correct.
No, it is correct.
Private schools
No,
do
well,
not.
not private. No,
Right.
yeah, not private.
Private
Yeah.
schools
Charter,
do not.
Charter.
Charter schools
Yeah.
do.
Correct.
And magnet schools, we all have the same?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
Well, I know some charter schools use, I think, some of them use a little bit better curriculum maybe for math than we do. And I just wonder, because every time that we get a math program that really is not very good, we always say, well, it's a state standard. It's like we can only choose this one because it's the only one that meets the standard, and that's just not true. So, like I say, I think a lot of parents got a good taste of the math that we use for the students, and I certainly did with my 9-year-old grandson, and my engineer husband almost threw the computer out in the middle of the yard because it was just insane. But anyway, I just hope that there's something we can do about that at some point, because a lot of parents saw
Sure.
what has been going on and didn't like it, actually.
Is that a group that Rhonda could serve on?
Listen, I have served on the math group back many times.
Yeah, I mean, I know math
and
is important to
it never
you.
has gotten me anywhere, so that's why I'm trying to get clarified. I mean, I had meetings all over this county one time, in every district in this county. For weeks I did it, and no, I will not do it again. But I just want to know at what point that, because we keep being told that we're going back to the basics on math, and we never have. And like I said, I have taken the time to look at math curriculum in a lot of private schools and stuff, and this stuff just don't fly there.
Well, let me say this. One of the big points that we will establish criteria based on a lot of different things, but one of the things that's been really important but also helpful feedback we've received with the adoption of the new ELA curriculum is that because there are enhanced pieces and parts that are not, like the best analogy I can give you is when my mom and dad bought my encyclopedia set from 1992, and then I was a senior, or I needed that encyclopedia to be current in whatever year that was. You get what you get when it's paper bound. Well, now so many of the resources are online and they can be updated yearly, and that is a huge enhancement from where we've been in the past when we get one standard textbook and it's that way for 6 years, and it's like that old encyclopedia set that used to stand on your shelf from 1982, but I graduated in 92 and I needed the updated encyclopedia version. That's no longer the case with high quality materials, because our state is also helping us raise the bar for what is expected for our boards and our system to choose from. We need to have the ability to stay current. This changes everything for our students to find new and current information. And that's a big part that we're looking for.
Well, I can see that in some things, but math just doesn't change. Especially the basic math just doesn't change. It hasn't changed in thousands of years, so I just don't understand. But anyway, like I say, so when it comes time, just be sure to notify the board about
Sure.
what needs to be done, and the parents as well. I appreciate
Absolutely.
it, Neely. Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Can I ask one one question on that is, why are we funding the curriculum through ESSER funds?
Well, so it's a opportunity to use those funds in a one-time way. So going back, just remember this is a filler year. So the adoption will actually be next year. Generally speaking, when we have an adoption, we try to fund it through GP if and when we can. Because we do have the opportunity to use the ESSER funds, this is a one-time way in which you can use them and not have the recurring. There's not the potential for a recurring cost for this year. I don't know if that answers your question. It's just using the funds, and one of the big focuses of the usage of ESSER dollars is around learning acceleration, and so this fits into that bucket really strongly.
Anyone else?
I have a handful of things.
Okay.
Actually, that's an overstatement. I have two things. The first is in the consent agenda, 9D 1F. It's the wood carpet bid. And I just have no idea what wood carpet is. And I thought it was a typo when I saw it on the agenda, and then it's on the bid. So what is wood carpet?
Sorry, trying to work new microphone. So I think it's talking about is it VCT is what it's called? It's like that tile that looks kind of like woodish, but it's actually a composite. So we've been using it a lot. If you go into the renovated offices, it's that type of flooring that we're using for those spaces, for libraries, like high traffic areas that carpet gets worn down in. So this is do this every year. It's like a unit cost bid, to where they can give us a unit cost per square foot, and we use it from that. I think VCT is what it's called.
VCT?
Yeah, it's like
A vinyl carpet.
Tile.
Yeah.
Okay. The other thing I wanted to ask about is under board matters, the Grow Your Own Program Manager, Strategic Partnerships Coordinator. I'd like to understand more the volume of individuals we anticipate in the next fiscal year being part of the Grow Your Own program, thus
Sure.
needing a manager.
Yes, so for this coming year, we have 57 folks in the program.
57?
And we expect to grow that, so we're at about 10 to 15%. We're probably going to move to Grow Your Own partnerships being 35% of our pipelines for
Okay.
which we hire. And so as we continue to do that, this position would not only work with Grow Your Own, but also oversee the other pipelines for hiring, as well as TFA, Project Inspire, and how they all fit together and what our overall strategies look like. And also working with those Grow Your Own candidates that we have and ensuring that they have the tools that they need to be successful for mentoring, for passing EdTPA, and those types of things.
Okay, all right, that's really helpful. Thank you, Penny. I guess one other thing, it's not on this. I have asked, and I ran it past Joe, and he asked me to go ahead and email Sherry, that we add the class legislative workshop onto the board matters for Thursday. We all got an email inviting us to attend in Memphis, but also to answer a survey, and it was related to a lot of legislative agenda kind of items and legislative priorities. I thought it would be useful for us to talk about, is Tiffany going to be able to go on our behalf? Are more people going? What's our united front as we head into that? What are we hoping to learn, et cetera? Because it's really about how we can leverage that that partnership and that investment to the best for our Hamilton County students. And I guess finally, just a point of question, like how we're going to do this. These don't light up. How's Joe going to know when we raise our hand? Are you serious? Is there anything we could get, like a pad that we raise our hand here and then he knows at the chair seat? It just seems like a recipe for confusion on behalf of the chair.
We always have the red cups.
We do. That would be super classy. We would definitely look like the fastest improving district in the state. if we had our red Solo cups.
We'll need you at the front to tell Joe to please.
Like, who raised their hand first? I really, seriously, I think we need to consider that technology piece because, you know, when we talk about important things, we all have a lot to say, and I think it's probably kind of hard for him to keep track. And I know there are tools that would allow him, if we push raise hand, he sees us in a queue, and then he can recognize us in order.
I was so excited to have an Apple-like mic. I didn't even notice the red. Having a white, mic felt Apple-ish. So.
That's because you just interrupt while the rest of us try.
Ms. Rhonda, Ms. Chairman, since I can't push my light, couple of questions. Comment is, and she's not here, Dr. Towns Edwards, the REACH program, amazing. I hope everybody understands what's going on in our district this summer. And we have a teacher, and I'm going to get embarrassed because I don't even know his last name. I just know him as Mr. Shane from Washington Alternative, and so talented. And he's working with our at-risk kids this summer, and I just appreciate the district so much and what you're doing with the REACH program. And I don't even know who's responsible, Dr. Johnson, but please tell them, whoever's doing that, Mr. Shane is amazing what he's doing with our kids. So I want to say that. I've got 2 or 3 questions here. My first would be, once again, the music instrument repair, and I think at some point I was told that maybe we'd try to find some ESSER funds to help with that some, and so I wanted to mention that, and I have one other thing. So.
Yes, so we are in kind of final stages. Claire has been working with Angela Askins on that. I think we've allocated a little over $200,000 out of ESSER to be able to do some sanitization as well as some repairs for instruments. So absolutely, yep.
Well, I've got, especially in my district, and I don't want to sound selfish like my district, but for all over the county, so important. And we own those instruments, so let's get them working so kids that want to participate in music can do that. So whatever we got to do, I hope we'll find. And then I look under the delegations, and I'm concerned. And I see at least 2, probably 3, that want to come to us Thursday to talk about Planned Parenthood and intentions, whatever they are. And my goodness, I just wish we could get to the point where we talk about math and science and literacy and so I'm troubled. I'm really troubled by, and I'm sure that Brother Frank will have some things to say that I'll totally agree with. But is this the place? I mean, is this the place? I mean,
Joe, if I can address that, because I have had a few phone calls. I don't know if anyone else has or not, but I know I have. I think that they were concerned that because in some counties, they have come in under some kind of health education, and the schools have hired Planned Parenthood to come in. That's their concern, that they will come in and be like a partner or a consultant or something like that under some kind of health education for students. That's the way they get into the schools, and I think from what I understand, that is their concern.
well, yeah, excuse my ignorance, but I'm just more concerned about math and science and reading. And maybe I'm wrong here, but I hear you, Rhonda.
Yeah,
I
but
hear
that's the phone calls that I've gotten, and people have also been by the shop, so that's because they asked me if I've heard anything about it or seen anything on our agenda, and I said, I have not seen anything like that. So, but I think that's the concern because it has happened in other districts, and I think that's why they're concerned about it. Jeannie, is that all that you have?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, also, the student security officers, we're going to vote on that for these new positions and what have you. Do we have all of that straightened out as far as we know? Has all of that been,
So the 9 that we're requesting on Thursday evening, we met with the sheriff and his staff about 3 weeks ago. And if you'll recall, the past few years, there have been 2 buckets of our
Right.
money that have funded
Right.
SROs. There's been 2 out of a school safety grant at the state level. And then 3 years ago, the board decided to put $500,000 in GP to support the hiring of additional officers. That wasn't occurring, and so in a meeting with Sheriff Hammond, he stated that he was not going to request those dollars going forward. And so there's about $153,000 that we've had in school safety grant. I mentioned it was $500,000 in the past, but this year's budget was at $360,000. So when you take that 150 and the 360, it gives us enough money to hire 9 SSOs. And so what the request is basically reallocate school safety funds and that GP dollar amount towards hiring 9 additional SSOs.
Okay.
We're still in conversations. Well, County Commission, I think, is still having conversations about what to do moving forward.
okay, that's what I wondered where they were. We don't know.
They have a meeting on Wednesday that they're going to continue to discuss how to move forward with it.
So I may have been distracted. Let me rephrase that. I was distracted for a second. I actually thinking about Joe's question. But the funds will come from GP, but also the school safety funds. Are those ours, or are those being committed by the commission to us? So
They-
that's
they
still our
come
money.
to
So the
us.
commission
It's-
still has not committed. That's okay.
Additional
That's-
dollars, correct.
Okay.
Okay, anything else on that? Okay, and one other question I have is this FEMA COVID reimbursement for schools. Is that in addition to the money that we're already getting for PPE and all that? Is this additional money, not
Yeah,
part
yes,
of
ma'am.
extra
And
money?
This is actually just a request for us to apply
Okay.
for the grant. So we still have to fill out the application, and there's no guarantee that we'll get additional monies, but
Okay.
it's an opportunity, so I feel like we should try.
Okay, thank you.
And it could be years with FEMA.
Yeah.
Just
I understand, I understand. Anybody have anything else?
What?
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I had a question about the waiver of deed restrictions for John P. Franklin, the old school. So I know, and I read the rationale for it, which I think makes sense. So are we doing this on a case by case, but in voting for this, would it just remove that restriction altogether across the board for any future buildings that are purchased? Because I know when we did this, when the discussion came up about the old 21st century, well, there's been discussion before where people were asking about the old 21st century building, and we couldn't do it because of that. So I'm just wondering, like, if we do this, then when somebody comes back about the 21st, the old EFG, Barnett Junior High,
Yeah.
if they come back about that building, will we then turn around and do this again? Or in doing this one time, does this alleviate it for any buildings coming up in the future that would be used for charter school purposes?
This is just for this deed, it's just for this property.
So we're setting a precedent here.
Well,
Yeah, Mayor.
you could look at it that way, but it does only pertain, in this instance, to this particular property. This particular charter school.
Right.
If some other building that wasn't, some other school that we didn't operate or wasn't affiliated with us down the road wanted to use the building, that waiver would not apply to them. The waiver applies to this charter school in this instance for this property.
Okay, but if the man calls me back that owns 21st Century, because he's called me a couple of times in my tenure here. So if he calls me back and says, hey, Girls Leadership wants to buy my buildings, and they want to put a school over here, a Future Ready. I was going to say, they might expand and say they want to do their own Future Ready. Can we sell this building? Then do we come back again and do this? for that building because Girls Leadership is a charter that's publicly supported from
It's a
us.
Hamilton County school.
And it's a Hamilton County school. So that's just my question. I mean, I'm okay with it, but I just want to know, are we going to do this every time? Or should we look at something that says if it's being used for charter purposes, we don't have to, I don't know. I'm just saying, you get what I'm saying? Do we have to do this every time if it's for the same thing? Or should we look at something that's more uniform for that particular category so that we don't have to do this every time? You know, I'm trying to make it easier for the staff. Like, do they always have to come back to us if it's something that's just like this, or should we do this every time?
You're asking, is there a way to make it broader right now?
Right.
So you don't have to come back and do it every time?
Yeah, because I feel like as soon as we say this with Thursday, that man gonna call me Friday morning. Because he calls a lot.
Well, for right now, it's the way, the board could certainly discuss that, I think, and work through whether that might be an option, I think, yes.
Okay.
What do they intend to do with that property?
They're gonna make it a charter school. That's gonna be a charter
Okay,
location.
okay. I'm
And
sorry,
saying
I
that
missed
for any
that.
other
Okay.
location, it may be that case. I know sometimes we are redundant and stuff that we wouldn't have to be if we just said, hey, if it's being used, I don't know, just make it a general.
Well, you
Who's
know,
doing it?
and-
Who's doing that? Somehow I missed all that.
Charter.
Okay,
Justin, you, in the years past, and I remember you had this conversation with Gary Waters. In years past, it never has been a policy, as far as I know. It's just been a practice. We would never sell one of our school buildings to someone else who was going to use it for a school. Never has been a policy. Am I correct? It's just a practice. So why?
I think
And I'm with Caritza on this. These are Hamilton County schools. And I don't know why that same, even if it was a practice, why that practice would still pertain to another Hamilton County school. And I'm not real sure why we have to do a waiver if,
well, so
'Cause it
I'm
was
not
a
sure
policy,
what
like, for competition or something.
the reasoning behind those decisions years ago. The reason we have to do a waiver is because it's written in the deed that
oh,
Yeah, that's what I'm
it's
saying.
written
You
in the
can't
deed.
sell
When
it.
we do
Okay.
them, yeah, I
Yeah,
remember
we-
that from the whole
you-
Piney Woods situation. It's in there that it cannot be
Yep.
used for competition of educational services.
Yeah,
I
but-
remember that. That's why.
But to your point.
Not a
it's
policy,
not
it was a
But this ain't a
practice.
It's not a
competition.
policy, it's just, it's
Practice.
written it in the deed. Okay.
Right.
correct.
So that's what I'm
Okay.
saying. If it's not competition in doing this waiver here, can we just, is it possible to do something that's a general waiver so that if this does come up again, you and them, I mean, Mary and Scott can get with Dr. Johnson and Justin, and the other Justin, and sign a piece of paper and go on, and we don't have to, I mean, you know, it's kind of
Yeah.
like a,
Because they are Hamilton County schools, and I'm not real sure.
I mean,
if we
because
consider that
technically
competition.
their charter is under us. Now, if it's something else completely different, I get that. But if it's somebody that we've approved a charter for, then they are a school option in Hamilton County. So what does that?
I think that's definitely something we could look into. One thing I would note, just every deed for every piece of property is
Is
its own
different.
entity.
Gotcha.
And its own, it may be that several deeds have similar types of waivers, but there may be some kind of quirk or what have you.
Oh, okay.
And so, I mean, we can certainly consider things that make things simpler, which I think we all like to do. But I would note that each deed, you know, I mean, definitely when you're talking about any kind of property, transfer or change or anything, you need to at least look at the individual deed for each thing and
Oh,
decide what
okay.
you need to do. So I would note that as well.
Okay, all right, thank you.
How are we doing the appraisal of the property? Like, what purchase price, or how's that being decided? Or how has it been decided?
Are you talking about for this piece of property? We don't own it anymore,
okay,
so
I thought
that's.
we owned it.
No,
Okay.
we just have in the deed a restriction that says that it can't be sold